According to Shelley-Ann Brown, she practically came out of the womb running.
I think I've always been an active person, like an active child. They tell me, because I don't remember, that one, like as soon as I started walking, I started running.
And apparently, she didn't stop. Now fast forward to the 2010 Vancouver Winter Olympics, where years of running and athletics finally paid off. It's here that Shelley-Ann Brown and her bobsleigh teammate, Helen Upperton, took home the silver medal. Not bad for a team put together just weeks before the Games.
So when did you find out that you were going to compete in the Olympics?
I found out on January 18th, 2010.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so the Olympics were in January 2010.
They were in February, and I found
February.
out. Yeah, I found out about 4 weeks before. Yeah.
Coming from a track and field background, Brown is fairly new to bobsleigh, but in the past few years, she has already set 5 world records and placed as high as second in the World Cup competition. But Vancouver would be her first Olympic Games.
Women only have, we still call it two-man, but a two-person event. And so you just have the pilot and the brakeman. And I am the brakeman, and so my responsibility is to be the engine of the sled, so to speak. So I'm the wheels. So I'm responsible for getting that first 50 meters going really quickly, which is critical for your velocity down the track, and hanging on and then stopping us at the end.
But their glide to the end wasn't as easy as they expected.
And after the first day, we were actually sitting in 5th. Actually, we were sitting in 5th after the first run and then 4th after the second run.
Okay.
And we came back to our room in our home in the Olympic Village, and we were sitting on our beds, and we were not talking about the fact that we were in 4th. And Helen, my teammate, she had been 4th at the last Olympic Games.
That night, both Brown and Upperton decided they weren't going to give up.
We wrote ourselves a note, and we put it up on the wall in between our 2 Canada flags, and just decided that we get to decide how the next day goes. We get to decide our own Olympic journey, and it doesn't matter the placing. We get to decide that we left it all out there, we gave 100%, and we get to walk away from these games knowing we did everything we could, and that's what we were going to focus on the things that we could control. And so that's how we went into the second day and ended up moving up from 4th to 3rd and then 3rd to 2nd.
The Canadian women's bobsleigh team took home silver.
I'll never forget watching the screen and seeing the next sled come down and knowing that we passed them, and going from 3rd to 2nd and seeing the crowd and my parents in the stand and my family in the stand. So it was kind of surreal, a little bit.
In fact, Shelley-Ann says it was her faith that helped her cross that finish line at the Olympics in Vancouver, and she says she couldn't compete professionally without it.
I think just recognizing that my body and that my abilities have been given to me by God, and that by running and moving, and it's different for everybody, but for me, running and being athletic is a form of glorifying God with what He's given me, and that always is something that plays in my mind. And every time I start to get nervous or I'm thinking about, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, and I think to myself, I don't have to worry about that. All I have to worry about is glorifying God. He's the only audience that I care about clapping for me at the end of anything. And so as long as I'm doing my best with what He's given me, that's all that really matters. And it takes a lot of pressure off, and it gives me a lot of joy in what I'm doing.
And in what she's been able to learn. Brown says God taught her some valuable lessons during her Olympic journey, lessons about who she is as a person, not just as an athlete.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot about Shelley-Ann. I think I learned, there is this verse of scripture where Paul says that he's had a lot and he's had a little, and he's learned that he can do all things through Christ, this is Philippians, which strengthens him, and that's what I learned. Like, I'm pretty strong, and not because I'm strong, but I've had a lot. I've had great seasons, I've had bad seasons, I've had lots of pressure, I've had no pressure at all, and none of that matters, And I learned, I think, my own tenacity.
It's those lessons that Shelley-Ann also enjoys passing on to the next generation. Starting her own camp in Scarborough, Ontario, she encourages young people to pursue their goals, be proud of who they are, and find joy in what they love to do.
I always tell young people at the end of the day, the medal really is exactly what it is. You know, it's just a piece of metal on a ribbon, and one day it has a half-life, it's gonna decompose. I might not be around to see it, but it will go back to being whatever it was before it was a medal and a ribbon. The thing that won't ever decompose is the lessons that I learned along the way and the strength that I found in pursuing what I was passionate about and deciding that I wasn't going to be fearful anymore and I wasn't going to be afraid of failing, and that there was no shame in doing something 100% and walking away knowing that you did something 100% regardless of the outcome. And so I always tell children and youth and adults even, you know, it's a lesson you keep on relearning and relearning throughout your whole entire life, just to go for it, to find the thing that brings you joy and do it with 100% of your ability.
It's that mindset, she says, she will be taking with her as she sprints to the next chapter of her life. An exciting athletic challenge she is ready to take on.
So what's next for Miss Shelley-Ann Brown?
What's next? Well, I haven't told many people yet. But speaking of going for it, I actually am going to begin sprinting again.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, what does that mean physically to go now from bobsledding to back to sprinting?
It means I have to lose 15 pounds is what it means. I'm not very happy about that. Physically, there's not too much difference in the way that we train. The distances that I run will be longer.
And will you be competing in an Olympics?
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
But one thing is for sure, no matter what happens, she says it's key for her to remember she can't cross the finish line without God by her side.
I don't know it would be impossible for me to do this, to be an amateur professional athlete without God in my life, without the daily reminders that I am worth something outside of what my body can do and what results I produce. You know, He has made me uniquely me, and I am, you know, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and if it's good enough for Him, it's good enough.
In Markham, Ontario, Magdalene John, 100 Huntley Street.